All right. MikeRatner.com. Happy New Year. Tuning in right at about that time of the year. I've begun my project that I talked about the previous New Year about the grand tour of ideas. So I thought I'd start with the premise and then share that with additional writing links online. So, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Mike Ratner. My website has a lot of things related to my resume, but MikeRatner.com. And I do have individual writing links depending on what the subject or project is. So this one is the Grand Tour is an accumulation, sort of bringing it all together. A grand narrative or grand theory, perhaps. It's funny because I just found out about that. So let me do a quick disclaimer. Even though I decided to call myself, as of today, an ontological researcher, which means I guess I'm presenting some ideas of my own philosophy that I think are unique and have some merit. And I think here I'll present some of the ideas. I'm not an expert in philosophy, so I may reference occasional philosophers of the past or contemporary philosophy, continental philosophy, different aspects. But, I might know an inkling. So I don't think I would qualify to be a teacher at a university or to be able to really teach on the subject. But why I'm here is because I think I have some unique inputs that people have told me are original and that I ought to publish. And so the Grand Tour brings it together in that way. So Grand Tour of my ideas. So let's quickly get going with that. And I'm thinking the lighting needs to be better. Let me put this over here. And although that might be too bright in your eyes, yeah, that's not going to work. Whoops, hello. All right, let's see if that does. I'll put on the top one. Sometimes I do the recording downstairs, but I'm standing here, so that's good. All right, good. All right, that works. Okay, space for things. Green screen. Okay, so if we're going to talk about a philosophy, which is really in terms of ontology, which is in my view, looking at the qualities of being what? Being alive, but also what is it to be or not to be? So we can look at this in regards to ancient Greek, which was studies and the philosophers of before even Plato, or and look at different aspects of how to be. I'm looking at this in the contemporary format of our modern age and the times we live in and who we are in association to our community, our surroundings, and what our human potential really is. So that's what kind of fascinates me. So we can look at the basics of human being. And so to really get a good grounding or foundation for this, we have to understand about human beings as a species, that we're living both in a constructed reality, because if you're living in a city, in an urban landscape, in brick or steel houses or offices, well, that didn't exist necessarily the way that it does now a short while ago, within the last century, the century before. And if we go back even further, what it might like to have been as a human being at the beginning, which might have been as an amoeba, but I'm talking more as a cave person or some form of, if you believe in evolution, of where we were. So I'm looking at a conscious evolution that does fit in with our technology, because we can see that we've had a rapid expansion in growth and a change in our in contemporary times in our culture that you just see all around you. Particularly if you were to bring back somebody from 50 or 100 years ago, you'd blow their minds, right? Just in the technology, but also just in the way that we live, and going, well, how do you do that? And what's changed just in the last 50 years, politically and socioeconomically and so forth. All right. But the foundation, though, really is to look at the human being. Where are we being? So we're being in life on Earth, right? Because that's where things are at, and living within the confines of what we call, quote, Mother Nature and, quote, Father Time. But if you were to ask any physicist, and I've talked quite a bit about this, any physics professor, science professor, what is it that we're living in, the constructs of the physical plane and the cosmos, they'll tell you it's just basically 4 components: matter, energy, space, and time. Matter, energy, space, and time. And if you've been following my work at all, You know that I like to use acronyms because the acronyms help explain things to memory. It's a memory device, but it's also a great tool as a formula to explain something that then allows you to kind of get it. So MEST is an acronym is MEST. Now, if we can picture matter, energy, space, and time just in what it is, it's matter, energy, space, and time. It is just what it is. And what's messed up about it, in the physics term, the UP, is that it's universal and it's perpetual. It ain't going to change. It's universal, it's everywhere, and it's perpetual. It ain't going to change. Now, the aspect of what makes it unique in the study of what I qualify as are looking at beingness is, and I'm looking at really getting out of the confines of what we are living in now in a narrow perspective of things to be able to expand our horizon of conscious awareness to what I describe as ultra being. And it's comparable to Abraham Maslow's work on the hierarchy of needs. People look at the pyramid, the pinnacle peak, which is called self-actualization, but actually Maslow went beyond looking at transcendence and looking at the tools and the commodities of our culture that could support this venture. And it's similar to what ancient traditions sought, or recent work of Krishnamurti, or in addition to Abraham Maslow, you have a number of other great teachers, philosophers. Guy Finley is one of my teachers, his teacher, Vernon Howard, and so forth. So a lot of influences coming to ideal to examine what the possibilities are of I guess this accelerated awareness of something. Dr. David Jubb's work as well, to have eye awareness, which I'll talk about in future talks. So if that's fascinating to you, then we have a good grounding foundation to know that this existence is happening within matter, energy, space, and time. Now, you could say there are components and, we could break these things apart of what's matter, energy, space, and time. There is a component here that brings some recognition to what this is in the ability of our comprehension and usefulness to exist within the realm of MEST, and that is I, right? I. So what is this I? There's a certain intelligence that then is able to comprehend, at least to be able to investigate what matter, energy, space, and time meets as far as their needs. And if there's some interest here, we're going to investigate it. And what happens, though, in my philosophy, looking at things, that things tend to get a little messed up in the psychic realm. So what I mean by this is that rather than just appreciating matter for what it is, energy, space, and time, we begin to sort of have a misconstruction about it. Now, recently I talked about the idea that there is a C component, because I see something, and I'm talking about a C, that's sort of a conduit, a connection to matter, energy, space, and time. So it's my mind, my brain, having some understanding. And if you look at contemporary times, we have definitely done quite a bit with matter, energy, space, and time. It's sort of like, wow, we've created a whole artificial reality that has become our world. But sort of this conduit of this I sometimes misinterprets things. That does cause on a psychic negative, what I call a disorientation, to be messed up in a negative way. Now, what's that? Well, matter becomes matter of concerns. Like, wow, some things aren't right, whether it be in the mind or matters like concern of money. So something's there. And then energy sort of becomes misconstrued, where, it's a bad energy some people could feel, becomes an emotional thing, So that then affects sort of the spatial construct of things, the sort of like the spatial dimension. Like maybe you're invading my space, man, or the space doesn't feel right. It's not quite good. It's not jiving with you, or it's a cluttered space, right? So something's not quite right in the spatial dynamics, like feng shui. And then ultimately the effect on time. So people feel they don't have enough time, or they're having a really bad time. So these are negative constructions, and they're interpretations of this I that's against the MEST. But yet it does allow us, in having this awareness, that we have something to do with what we're feeling and what we're consciously constructing, whether it's real or not. There's a sense of that being that's affecting things. So this is what my work and what we're going to launch Bon Voyage on the Grand Tour. Because having this as a baseline, we're now able to explore this realm and to understand what, number one, is this misconstrued identity that's keeping us from this ultra being realization, or the finer states of being, as you wish to realize it and have this experience, that we need to wake up out of this messed up analogy that I describe as a mass trance, because we're all in it. And it comes from our meta-languaging and our way of the relationships, this meta-narrative that's happening in our society right now, and division. I have a whole political writing on that called Dashism. Dashism, it's like fascism, close analogy, but just replace the F with a D, dashism.com, and you can read about that. Now, this particular work is not really about that because it's more of personal philosophy and ontology about how we're being in the world that needs examining. And yes, there are going to be some credences and sourcing and references to great thinkers of the past, but again, I'm no expert and I don't claim to be. I just have my own unique view on things that have just come within my range of experiences and personal growth that have allowed me to sort of put together things from these different arrangements that now have this, and I don't really have a name for it overall, but hopefully the goal is to awaken from the mass trance in a more conscious, easy, loving way of being that constitutes what I describe as ultra being. So we're able to expand our horizon to enjoy a greater sense of well-beingness among each other that then designs an equitable, desirable, sustainable future for us all and future generations. And I do, at the end point of this, have a formula, again, acronym I call UBE3, letters UBE3. It's a formula. It's something that I think would be my long-lasting legacy, the one nutrient seed component that I would love to pass along to you and for you and your future generations. So UBE3 just simply is learning this element of ultra being, so we practice ultra being present, right? Ultra being loving, more of what this quality is. And the quality is the E3. How we're able to be a representative and emissary of this work. UBE3 stands for ultra being, an excellent example of enlightenment as you know it to be. Whether you've had a great model teacher or master in your life or something that you saw that was really in that realm desirable and something that was like, wow, enhancing your ability to express this, which uplifts, I define as enlightened. And it's a practice. We're going to fall on our face over and over again, but the practice is to get better at it or to devise the path towards this expression of perfection, which I describe as UBE3, ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment, that you become the way shower based on the inputs and the education that you've gotten, that you now, through an experimental process, evolve it. And that's what it's about. So we continually grow in this realm. That's the basis where things are. So we can awaken from things that are messed up for so many people so we can have this aha moment and begin to let it go, as Guy Finley would say, be able to have a bit more of this naturalness, living more in the gap, as Deepak Chopra would say, having more of a sense of just, right? Ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment, being present. All right, well, I think that's a good introduction to what this is. We'll explore a bit more of this in the continuing series. My goal for the new year is to complete this as a project, a course, and ultimately really a movement, a self-liberation movement. So I appreciate your input and your ideas on it, and we'll continue from here. Again, you can find more of this work at MikeRatner.com. I will be creating a work on self-liberation, selflib.org, and love to get your feedback on it, friendship, fellowship, and all. Thank you.